Hey guys, welcome back, and today I'll be giving you the post-race review of the Qatar Grand Prix. This race was basically the one that decided, well, not fully, but it decided what was going to happen in the championship fight. And guess who won? Max Verstappen. And due to him winning, that makes him have 396 points. And him second in the Drivers' Championship. And then we have Norris first, still in the Drivers' Championship, and then Piastri still in third. But this is the first three-way battle that we have had since 2010, which Sebastian Vettel had won. Now you're probably wondering, how are those three gonna win? Well, with 25 points available in the first place of Abu Dhabi, and up for grabs for all three of them, for Lando Norris to win the race, he simply needs to finish on a podium position. If he finishes on a podium position, then he wins the championship regardless of where his rivals finish. So if, let's say, he finished third, and then you have Piastri and Verstappen who finished first and second, then it doesn't really matter how much he gets, well, how much they or how high they climb. However, if he does not finish in the podium, but finishes ahead of both Verstappen and Piastri, then he wins the title regardless of where he is. Any other scenario for Norris to win the championship requires him to finish within 12 points of Verstappen and 16 points of Piastri. Now, if two leading drivers are level on points, then it count back comes to play. In that case, it will count how many wins they've had in the first place, how many wins they've had in the second place, which is where Norris had the biggest advantage, since all three of them are already on podium. For Max Verstappen to win it, he needs to win the race, and then for Norris to finish, or to finish or get worse, then fourth place. And then for Piastri to win the championship, he simply needs to do the same thing as Verstappen, but he needs Norris to finish outside the top 6. Well, that's how the three drivers can potentially win the championship. Now, if Norris wins the championship, that will be his first one. If Piastri wins it, that will be his first one. And if Verstappen wins it, that will be his 5th one in a row. But he may have to retire the number 1 because of how tight the battle is. Now, since it's a three-way battle, it goes to the title decider, which is Abu Dhabi in this case. And if any of those scenarios happen, then we are definitely going to find a guaranteed winner for the championship. And then, not only did that happen, but Hulkenberg had kind of hit Piastri, because they were entering a turn, and then when they entered the turn, Piastri, who was given a lot of space by Hulkenberg, no, not Piastri, Perez Gasly, who was given a lot of space by Hulkenberg, he decided to go a bit wide, which caused for Hulkenberg to be hit, and for a tyre to fall out, and for him to be stranded on the side of the track. Meaning that was his 3rd or 2nd DNF in the span of about 6 races. Now, if Lando had stayed in the top 5 and not outside of it, he would have already won the championship. But due to the safety car that happened when the crash happened, which was on lap 8, everyone apart from both Piastri and Norris had pitted. When Piastri, Norris and Ocon, everyone had pitted apart from those 3. Now, since it was on lap 8 and there was a particular amount of laps you can use on a particular stint, well, for every single stint in this case, they would have to pit again on lap 32. So that means that they would only have 24 laps per tyre, which made it harder, because if it was 24 laps per tyre and you pit on the 8th lap, whilst you do gain a slight advantage, it's not like you get the best advantage. Because let's say you finished in the top 5 and then you were one of the drivers who pitted on lap 8. You would have to be very aware that with every stint, so it does not matter whatever stint you have, whether it's the hard, medium or softs, you would have to pit on lap 32 regardless. And then both the McLaren teammates had pit one lap after the other, so then they can build a big enough gap. And as the race was nearing to an end, Verstappen had already basically secured first place. Piastri had secured second, but guess who secured third? Carlos Sainz, and this was his second or third place finish, which was the best ever since Bottas and Felipe Massa. So this has shown that the Williams had really been growing over time, and due to the Williams growing over time, they were able to figure out what strategy they should play and if that strategy would work. Now, if let's say, for example, let's say that Piastri had held off Verstappen and just allowed Norris to do whatever he wanted, then Norris would have won the race, if that happened. But due to that not happening and there being a safety car after that crash, it didn't happen at all. Not only that, it was probably the most important race in the history of this season, apart from the next race, which is Abu Dhabi on the 7th of December. Apart from that race had determined whether Norris would win the championship or whether it will go to Abu Dhabi, which it did. And due to that happening, it would mean that those 3 who are in the fight for the final race of the season, they would probably want to give it their best, but you can't always tell what strategy they're going to put in. And also, after that disappointment from the McLaren side, they were unsure what they were going to say to the media due to them having not the best of races. And some people were stating that the proprietary rules had kind of just broke, and this meant that if Verstappen's gonna win the championship, he wins it for the 5th time, like I said, and then if either McLaren drivers win it, it'll be their 1st time. Now, if it goes that way, that means that whatever the Mercedes do, so both Mercedes drivers, whatever they do, they need to be able to have a good amount of, they need to be able to be in a good position for them to secure second place in the Constructors' Championship if they make sure that Verstappen's outside the top 5 or even lower. Now, due to each race that has happened so far this season having a big impact on the Drivers' Championship, it always goes to the last race of the season. Who remembers the infamous 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix? This was basically the one where people state that Hamilton should have won it and got his 8th one and overtaken Schumacher, or whether Verstappen had made the right choice in what he did. So if that happens again, but with the McLaren team, they are definitely going to want to redo the race, even though you can't redo a race because it already started. And they're also going to have to figure out what plan they're going to put for the race. Now, if their plan worked perfectly, then one of the two drivers are going to win the championship, regardless. But this season, it's kind of like the McLaren have been favouring which drivers they want, because either they want Piastri or Norris, because at the first half of the season they favoured Piastri. As you can see, they all had a very good amount of races, and then they favoured Norris in the second half of the season. Now, if any of them win the championship, or if it gets tied on points, which is still possible, it would have to go to how many first places they've had, but they've all had 7 each. So it goes to the amount of second places they had, which is where Norris had the advantage, and both Max and Piastri have the disadvantage. So it's going to be a really interesting end to the season. Make sure that you stay tuned on your preferable sports program.